Cassidy Hart didn't believe in workplace retreats, especially not ones that involve group hikes, trust falls, and ziplining through Vermont forests in the dead of October. But as executive assistant to Alexander Grayson, CEO of Grayson Dynamics and notorious workaholic, she didn't exactly have a say. The company's annual strategic bonding weekend was compulsory, and Alex insisted on everyone attending, including his assistant. So Cassidy packed her duffel bag with activewear, steeled her nerves, and got on the chartered bus to the lodge. The mountain air was crisp, too clean for her liking. She preferred Manhattan's chaos, the honking taxis, the scent of roasted nuts from corner vendors, the smell of ambition thick in the air. Here, people smiled too easily. It made her nervous. Alex, on the other hand, seemed entirely at ease. Cassidy noticed how relaxed he looked as he stepped out of the SUV behind her. His usual charcoal suit was replaced by a gray hoodie and fitted jeans. His dark hair, always slicked back in the office, was tousled by the wind. He was unreasonably handsome, and she hated how often she noticed that. They hadn't always gotten along. Their relationship started like most boss-assistant dynamics, formal, clipped, and strictly professional. But in the last 6 months, something shifted. Cassidy started to see beneath his aloof, CEO exterior. He started to smile more, linger by her desk, ask questions about her life that felt personal. But nothing ever crossed the line. Until the retreat, the first night was a blur of icebreakers and campfire stories. Cassidy sipped her wine, eyes drifting toward Alex more times than she cared to admit. He was charming in a way that wasn't corporate tonight, laughing freely, shoulders loose, his gaze warm when it landed on her. When most of the staff went to bed, Cassidy lingered by the fire. "So did he. You surviving this wilderness therapy?" he asked, handing her a second glass of wine. "Barely. I didn't realize I signed up for adult summer camp when I took this job." He chuckled. "You've handled worse. Like my entire calendar." Their eyes locked. There was something electric in the space between them. It had always been there. But now, there was no boardroom, no deadlines, no roles to play. "Cassidy," he said, voice lower. "Can I ask you something?" She tilted her head. "Depends. Do you ever think about what would happen if we weren't, boss and assistant?" Her heart thumped. "Sometimes," she admitted. He leaned in slowly, giving her a chance to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was soft, tentative, then urgent. They left the fire, half-drunk and breathless, fumbling through the dark woods toward one of the empty guest cabins. Clothes were discarded like afterthoughts. In the dim light, they saw each other not as boss and assistant, but as man and woman, craving, colliding, consuming. It was a night built on months of repressed feelings, ignited under the stars. They didn't talk about it the next morning. Alex left early for a breakfast meeting, and Cassidy caught the bus back to the city in silence. She told herself it meant nothing. But something had shifted, and it wasn't over. Monday arrived too quickly. The office was buzzing with its usual tempo, phones ringing, heels clacking against marble floors, coffee machines hissing in the break room. Cassidy walked through the sliding glass doors with a pounding heart and a carefully constructed mask. She'd applied extra concealer that morning, not just for the dark circles, but to cover the flush that crept over her skin every time she thought of that night. And she'd been thinking about it, constantly. She walked past the reception desk, greeted a few coworkers, and pressed the elevator button with more force than necessary. Cassidy entered her office, dropped her bag, and booted up her computer. She was just opening her inbox when she heard the familiar sound of polished shoes behind her. She turned, slowly, expecting Alex to breeze past with a clipboard or phone glued to his ear. Instead, he paused at her door. "Morning," he said. Her throat went dry. "Morning." A beat passed, then another. "Can we talk?" She stiffened. "Now!" He glanced behind him. My office. 10 minutes. Her heart was a drum in her chest. She nodded, trying not to show it. 10 minutes later, she stepped into his glass-walled corner office and closed the door behind her. Alex stood by the window, looking out over the skyline. The sun threw warm amber streaks across the floor. "I'm sorry," he said before she could speak. "For complicating things." Cassidy folded her arms. "You didn't force me, Alex. I was there too." He turned, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly shattered her. "I just don't want to lose what we have. Professionally, you're the best assistant I've ever had. And more than that." He trailed off. Cassidy stepped closer. "More than that, what?" His jaw flexed. "More than that, I've come to care about you. Probably more than I should." Her breath caught. "Then what do we do?" He sighed. "We act like it didn't happen. Unless you want something else." She hesitated. "I don't know what I want yet, but I know pretending won't work." He gave a nod. "Then we take it one day at a time. No pressure. No expectations." And just like that, an uneasy truce formed between them, delicate, charged, and impossible to ignore. Over the next few weeks, Cassidy tried to focus on her work, but the memory of that night haunted her. Every time she passed Alex in the hall, every time their hands brushed when exchanging files, her body betrayed her. Then came the nausea. At first, she chalked it up to stress. A bug. Too much coffee. But when the vomiting didn't stop and her appetite vanished entirely, she stood in the bathroom one Tuesday morning, clutching a pregnancy test with shaking hands. She didn't have to wait the full 3 minutes. The second line appeared almost immediately. Cassidy stared at it like it had betrayed her. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." But the test was firm in its answer. She was pregnant, and she already knew who the father was. 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 Cassidy stared at the test, the white stick trembling in her hand. Her vision blurred, not from tears yet, just sheer disbelief. She was pregnant. It wasn't just the test. It was the symptoms. The nausea, the fatigue, the metallic taste in her mouth. Her instincts screamed what the test confirmed. Still, she sat on the edge of the bathtub, willing the universe to reverse course. The worst part wasn't the shock of the result. It was who the father was. Alex Grayson. Her boss. Her brother's best friend. Cassidy closed her eyes. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a slow-motion implosion of every boundary she had ever set. Her brother Ethan would lose his mind. A sharp knock interrupted her spiral. "Cass, you in there? Speak of the devil." "Just a sec," she called out, voice too high. She shoved the test into a drawer and splashed water on her face. Ethan didn't need to see her like this. Ethan Hart, charming and protective to a fault, had always looked out for her. Growing up without parents meant they clung to each other fiercely. He had introduced her to Alex 10 years ago at a summer barbecue, and she remembered thinking how intense Alex was even then. He became Ethan's best friend in college. A few years later, he started his own tech consulting firm. Now, he was a powerful CEO and Cassidy's boss. Not that Ethan ever imagined she'd work for him, or worse, sleep with him. She opened the door. Ethan stood there holding 2 coffees. "You okay?" he asked, brow furrowing. "Just tired." "You sure? You've looked pale for days." Cassidy forced a smile and took the coffee. "Probably just a bug." He narrowed his eyes but didn't press. "Want to hang out tonight? Takeout and movies. Maybe tomorrow." He studied her for a second longer before nodding. "All right. Just don't ghost me again." Cassidy shut the door gently behind him and exhaled. This was a disaster. She needed to tell Alex. But how? How do you walk into your billionaire boss's office and say, "Surprise, you're going to be a dad," especially when your brother is his best friend? She didn't have an answer, but she knew she couldn't wait long. Couldn't wait long. Couldn't wait. Cassidy avoided Alex for 3 days. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't trust herself not to break down in front of him. After the night at the company retreat, things had unraveled quickly, first emotionally, then physically, and now biologically. The truth grew larger in her stomach every day. But the lie, the one she maintained with silence, was suffocating. Her pregnancy wasn't a maybe anymore. She had confirmation from 2 tests. The symptoms had settled into a rhythm. Nausea in the morning, bone-deep fatigue by mid-afternoon, emotions that swung like wrecking balls. And still, she said nothing. That morning, Cassidy sat at her desk, staring at the latest quarterly projections without absorbing a single number. The open office buzzed around her. Phones rang, printers spat out pages, conversations hummed behind closed doors. But her thoughts were consumed with a single person, Alex Grayson. He had texted her once since the retreat. "Let me know when you're ready to talk." She hadn't replied. She wasn't avoiding the truth. She was just delaying the avalanche it would bring. Her hand drifted to her abdomen again. Barely anything there. Not yet, but soon. She closed her eyes. "Cass!" Her eyes snapped open. Her assistant, Mandy, hovered nearby with an apologetic look. "Alex just called down. He wants to see you in his office." Cassidy's heart stuttered. "Did he say why?" she asked, too quickly. "Nope. Just said ASAP." Of course he did. Cassidy stood, trying to ignore the sweat that broke along her spine. She smoothed her navy pencil skirt, squared her shoulders, and walked the long corridor to Alex's executive floor. When she arrived, his door was already open. He stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. "Come in," he said without turning. Cassidy entered, gently closing the door behind her. He turned. "You've been avoiding me." Her throat tightened. "I've been busy." A ghost of a smile flickered across his face. "You always are." There was a pause, charged and thick. Alex moved around his desk, standing closer than she expected. "Cass, about that night." "Don't," she interrupted. "Don't say it was a mistake." He blinked. "I wasn't going to." She looked up at him then, the weight of weeks pressing on her chest. "It wasn't just a night to me." His voice softened. "Me either." The confession opened something between them, fragile and terrifying. "I've thought about it every day since," he continued. "I didn't want to pressure you. I figured you needed space." Cassidy's lips parted, words catching. This was the moment. She could tell him. She could unburden herself and finally breathe. But instead, "I do need space," she said quietly. Alex nodded, but his eyes said more. Disappointment. Hurt. Understanding. "Okay," he said. "But I hope you know. I'm here. For whatever you need." She turned to leave, heart pounding. But before she reached the door, she looked over her shoulder. "I'll tell you soon," she said. "Just not today." He watched her go, a shadow flickering behind his eyes. That night, Cassidy sat on her balcony, a blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her phone clutched in her hand. She had her OB appointment the next day. Everything would become real then. Heartbeat, due date, medical records. She scrolled through her camera roll and paused on a photo Ethan had taken at the retreat. She and Alex stood too close. She was laughing. He was looking at her like she hung the stars. Her brother still didn't know. That thought sank into her bones like lead. Ethan would explode. Alex was his best friend. It would feel like betrayal on both sides. Cassidy whispered into the darkness, "What the hell do I do now?" At her appointment the next morning, Cassidy lay on the crinkly paper as the ultrasound machine whirred to life. The tech squirted gel on her abdomen and moved the wand with expert ease. "There we go," she said, smiling. "Little Bean is right on track." And then she heard it. A tiny, thudding heartbeat. Cassidy's eyes flooded instantly. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It wasn't abstract. It was real. A life. Half hers. Half his. "I need to tell him," she said aloud to no one. Because now there was no turning back. Back at work, she walked into the office with a plan. She'd finish the finance meeting, clear her inbox, then finally talk to Alex. She rehearsed her words in her head, over and over. But life, as always, had its own agenda. Because as she stepped off the elevator, Ethan was standing there, arms crossed, face pinched. "We need to talk," he said. Cassidy blinked. "What's going on?" "About you and Alex." Her stomach dropped. "What about us?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "I saw him leaving your room that morning at the retreat. You think I wouldn't notice? Something happened." Cassidy said nothing, and that was enough answer. Ethan took a step back, betrayal etched across his face. "Are you serious, Cass? He's my best friend. I didn't plan for it to happen." "You didn't plan to sleep with him?" "Ethan." He turned away, furious and hurt. Cassidy's throat was dry. "There's more." He turned back slowly. She opened her mouth, and then Alex appeared in the hallway. The three of them stood there, a silent triangle of tension. Ethan's gaze snapped between them. You knew this would screw everything up." Alex looked calm, but his eyes were dark. "It's complicated." "No shit." Cassidy stepped between them. "Stop. This isn't how I wanted it to happen." Ethan's voice was low now. "What else aren't you telling me?" Cassidy took a breath that nearly cracked her ribs. "I'm pregnant." The words slammed into the hallway. Ethan stared at her. Then Alex. Then back to her. "You're what?" Alex reached for her instinctively, but she held up a hand. "I was going to tell you both. I just needed to figure it out first." Ethan turned and walked away without another word. Cassidy stood in the silence he left behind, heart broken open, everything exposed. She felt Alex step closer. "I'm here," he said. And for the first time, she let herself lean into it. Self-lean into it. Self-lean into it. Self-lean into it. Self-lean in. Cassidy didn't sleep that night. After telling Ethan about the pregnancy, her brain refused to settle. She kept replaying every word, every expression on his face, and the moment he turned and walked away without saying a thing. Silence had never been so loud. Alex texted her shortly after midnight. "Alex, I know you probably want space, but I'm here. Whenever you're ready." She hadn't replied. Not yet. But she wasn't shutting him out anymore. Just gathering strength. By morning, she sat curled on her couch, holding a cold mug of coffee, staring blankly at the skyline. The city never stopped moving, but Cassidy felt frozen in place. There was a knock at the door. She hesitated, then opened it. Ethan stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, looking like he hadn't slept either. "I shouldn't have walked away," he said quietly. She let him in. They sat in silence for a while, the space between them heavier than usual. "When were you going to tell me?" he asked finally. "I didn't know how. Or when. I wanted to be sure first. And then it just kept getting harder." Ethan nodded slowly. I never imagined this. You and Alex. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even supposed to happen. We were both drunk. Stupid. And then, she gestured to her stomach. This. He rubbed his face with both hands. "Jesus, Cass." "I know." There was another long pause. "Do you love him?" The question hit harder than she expected. Cassidy looked down, her voice a whisper. "I don't know. I think I could." Ethan leaned back. "He's been my best friend since middle school. If he hurts you..." "He won't. You don't know that." "I don't," she admitted. "But I have to believe he wants to do the right thing." Ethan nodded, biting his lip. "Then I'll support you. Both of you. But it's gonna take time." She felt tears prick her eyes and leaned over to hug him. "Thank you." That afternoon, Cassidy finally responded to Alex's message. "Cassidy, can we talk? In person." "Alex, of course. My place or yours?" "Cassidy, mine." He arrived just after 7. She changed into leggings and an oversized sweater, not bothering with makeup. When she opened the door, he looked exhausted but relieved. "Hey," he said softly. "Come in." He stepped inside, awkwardly hovering near the entryway until she gestured for him to sit. They both settled on the couch, tension thick. "I told Ethan," she said. "I figured. He's not exactly subtle." He's hurt, but he said he'll try to be supportive. Alex let out a breath. That's better than I expected. She turned toward him. Alex, what do you want? His eyes met hers, serious and unwavering. I want to be in this. All of it. The baby. You. I don't want to be some distant co-parent who sends checks and shows up on weekends. I want to build something with you. Her heart squeezed. But I also know I don't get to just say that and have it happen, he continued. You have to want it too. I do, she whispered. But I'm scared. Me too. But I'm still here. She nodded, the lump in her throat too big to swallow. We barely know how to be around each other without work in the middle. Then let's start figuring it out. Outside of work. No emails. No meetings. Just us. Cassidy gave him a small, trembling smile. Okay. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You're not alone in this, Cass. Her breath hitched. I know. Thank you. The next few days were filled with cautious steps forward. Cassidy told HR about the pregnancy. Alex started slowly transferring some of his CEO responsibilities to trusted division heads. Ethan avoided both of them at work, but occasionally sent Cassidy texts. How's the little peanut today? And you eating enough? Alex began showing up in subtle ways, bringing her prenatal vitamins when she forgot, helping her install blackout curtains when she couldn't sleep, staying up late to talk about names or fears or just nonsense. Cassidy wasn't ready to call it love, but it was something. Real. Growing. Like the child inside her. One night, as she curled up beside Alex on her couch, their fingers laced, she looked up at him. I still don't know what we're doing. Neither do I, he said. But I think that's okay. She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. Outside, a storm rolled over the city again. But inside, there was warmth. Not certainty, but maybe. Hope. 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 Cassidy's apartment was quieter than it had been in weeks. Gone were the anxious pacing and restless tossing in bed. The air, however, was still thick with uncertainty. And yet, somewhere beneath the nervous current, a fragile peace had begun to settle. For the first time, Cassidy wasn't waking up in a panic every morning. She woke up to the smell of fresh coffee, to the gentle clink of dishes in the sink. To Alex. He was there now more often than not, though they never said out loud what that meant. She padded into the kitchen that Saturday morning, barefoot, hair in a loose braid. Alex was flipping pancakes in one of her pans, badly. You know, she said, stifling a laugh, you might be a financial genius, but you are absolute garbage at pancakes. He glanced back, flour on his cheek. I'm experimenting. You're witnessing greatness in progress. Cassidy leaned against the counter, one hand instinctively resting on her stomach. She was beginning to show, just enough that her old jeans no longer fit without a rubber band trick. The bump made everything real in ways words never could. Alex slid a slightly burnt pancake onto a plate with flair and offered it to her. She raised an eyebrow but took it. As she chewed, he watched her carefully. Any nausea? He asked. Not this morning. I think the worst is behind me. He nodded and poured 2 mugs of coffee, handing her the decaf one. They ate quietly, side by side at the breakfast bar. No boardroom, no laptop screens, no time constraints. Just 2 people slowly figuring each other out again, moment by moment. Cassidy broke the silence. Do you ever think about what your life was before all this? Alex stared into his mug. Yeah, all the time. And he looked up, eyes tired but open. It was empty. I didn't know it then. But it was. Cassidy held his gaze for a beat too long, then glanced away. I used to envy your certainty. Like you had it all figured out. He gave a soft laugh. I'm good at acting like I know what I'm doing. But deep down, I was drowning in my own expectations, in my father's shadow, in this ridiculous image I built of who I was supposed to be. She rested her chin on her palm. And now, I'm still figuring it out. But for the first time, I'm not pretending. Cassidy smiled faintly. That's progress. That afternoon, they went for a walk in the park. Cassidy had started making more time for herself. Gentle exercise, maternity yoga videos, breathing routines. The pregnancy books warned her about the second trimester emotional roller coaster, but the truth was, her heart had been riding that ride long before the hormones kicked in. They sat on a bench beneath a sycamore tree, watching a group of kids chase each other with paper airplanes. Alex glanced at her belly. Do you ever think about who they'll be? He asked. All the time. I don't even know how to be a dad. Neither do I. But you're trying. That counts for something. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'm scared I'll mess it all up, that I'll turn into my father, or worse, run away like he did. Cassidy reached out and took his hand. You're here. That's the opposite of running. He looked at her, something raw in his eyes. You make me want to stay, even when it's hard. She squeezed his fingers. Good, because it's going to get harder. He smiled, but it was a serious smile, one that understood. Later that night, Ethan came over. Cassidy had invited him. She didn't want secrets between any of them anymore. He walked in carrying a bag of takeout and his usual sardonic smirk. Figured you two might need a break from culinary disasters. Cassidy laughed. You're not wrong. Alex looked up from the couch, surprised but polite. Thanks, man. Ethan shrugged and sat on the armrest. The silence that followed was familiar but no longer tense. So, Ethan said, gesturing between them, how's cohabitating with the father of your unborn child? Cassidy groaned. God, can we not? Alex chuckled. It's a work in progress. Ethan nodded. At least he hasn't bolted. I'm still here, Alex replied simply. There was something in Ethan's eyes, wounded pride. Maybe, but it softened. Good. They ate together that night like old friends trying to write new rules. No one pretended it wasn't awkward, but no one bailed either. That was enough. When Ethan left, Cassidy and Alex stood in the doorway. He's trying, she said. Alex nodded. He loves you. I know. She looked down. Just not like that. Alex reached out, brushed her knuckles with his. You okay? I think I am. They stood there for a moment, the silence between them no longer sharp, but soft with possibility. Cass! Yeah. When the baby comes if you want, he hesitated. I'd like to be in the delivery room. I want to be there. For you. For her. Cassidy didn't answer right away, but when she did, her voice was certain. Okay. And for the first time since the world flipped upside down, it felt like the ground beneath them had stopped shaking. Stopped shaking. Stopped shaking. Stopped shaking. Stopped shaking. Cassidy woke to a knock at the door. It was early. Too early for anything casual, and the sharp rhythm of the knock had an urgency that pulled her out of the cocoon of sleep like a wire tugging at her chest. Alex stirred beside her. They had fallen asleep on the couch again, one of the new habits they developed in the quiet limbo of shared evenings. Neither of them said it, but they preferred being close now. There was comfort in proximity, even when words failed them. She shuffled to the door in slippers and one of Alex's oversized shirts. Standing on the doorstep was a woman Cassidy didn't recognize at first. Cassidy Monroe, the woman asked. Her tone clipped professional. Yes. The woman extended an envelope. You've been served. The moment she said it, Cassidy's blood went cold. "What is this?" But the woman had already turned and walked away. Cassidy stared at the thick envelope in her hand, her heart thudding. Slowly, she peeled the seal and pulled out the papers. Her knees buckled. Alex caught her just as she collapsed onto the floor. He took one look at the document in her hand, and his eyes went dark. "What is this?" he demanded. "An injunction," she whispered. From the board, Alex grabbed the paper. His hands trembled as he read it. "They're challenging my authority as CEO. They think I'm unfit due to personal entanglements." Cassidy blinked. "You told them." "No," he snapped too fast. Then he corrected himself, slower this time. "Not directly, but they might have figured it out. Someone saw us leave the retreat together. And my stepping away from work, it gave them ammunition." She felt sick. "They're going to try to take the company from you?" Alex rubbed his face. "No. They're going to try to make me choose." Cassidy's voice cracked. "Between me and your legacy." "No," he said again, more forcefully. "Between who I used to be and who I want to be." They spent the day in a haze of phone calls and tension. Alex's lawyer, Margaret, an older, no-nonsense woman with a reputation for turning courtroom victories into performance art, arrived at the apartment by late afternoon. "This isn't about your capability," she said, adjusting her glasses as she flipped through the injunction. "This is about image. Perception. The board thinks you're distracted, emotional, vulnerable." Alex folded his arms. "I am emotional. I'm about to be a father. That doesn't mean I can't run a company." Margaret smirked. "You're preaching to the choir. But this isn't just about logic. It's optics. If they can make the shareholders believe you're not focused, they'll start a coup." Cassidy sat on the edge of the coffee table. "Is there anything we can do?" Margaret gave her a sharp look. "You?" "No. You're the reason they've opened this door." Cassidy flinched. "But you," Margaret turned back to Alex, "you have options. Fight. Or walk." That night, the silence was unbearable. Cassidy sat on the bed, legs pulled up to her chest, while Alex stared out the window. "I never wanted this to happen," she said. "I know. I would never ask you to give it all up. I know that too." He turned, walked to the bed, and sat beside her. "But I need you to know something. I've spent my whole life defining myself by what I could control. The company, my money, my reputation, all of it." Cassidy looked at him. He continued, "Then you showed up, and this baby showed up, and suddenly I'm building something that doesn't come with spreadsheets and quarterly forecasts. I'm building a life, and it scares the hell out of me." She reached out and took his hand. "It scares me too." He looked at her with such fierce tenderness it nearly broke her. "I don't care about the board," he said. "If they want a soulless puppet in a suit, they can have one. I'd rather be here with you. With her." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "But," he added, "I'm not giving up without a fight. I want to be both. A father, and a man who doesn't get pushed around." Cassidy nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "Then we fight." In the days that followed, Alex became someone else. Someone sharper, more decisive, but also more human. He went back to the office not to retreat, but to confront. He called a press conference. He stood at the podium, calm and clear. "I'm stepping away from daily operations to focus on a different kind of investment, my family. But I will remain CEO in title. I will not be intimidated by archaic ideas of leadership. The board does not own my life. I do." The room went still. The stock dipped, but the public response was swift and shockingly supportive. Social media praised his vulnerability. Financial pundits debated his long-term strategy. And within a week, the board was silent. Alex had won. Not because he bowed, but because he stood taller than he ever had before. That night, Cassidy waited for him with a small celebration. Just the two of them. Pizza, ice cream, a candle. Alex walked through the door, looking tired but triumphant. "You did it," she said. He dropped his briefcase and pulled her into his arms. "No," he murmured into her hair. "We did." They kissed, slow and deep, and for the first time since everything had started, Cassidy felt something strange and wonderful bloom in her chest. Hope! 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 Cassidy stood in the middle of the nursery, surrounded by pastel walls and scattered baby clothes, paralyzed by the overwhelming task of getting it all together. The crib still needed assembly. The rocking chair was half constructed, and she hadn't even started washing the newborn onesies. "Why do people act like this part is fun?" she muttered to herself, clutching a tiny sock in her hand. Alex had been gone since early morning, caught in back-to-back meetings, navigating the aftermath of the board confrontation. Though he'd technically won, there were still bruises left behind. He was managing it well, but Cassidy could feel the toll. She rubbed her belly, now heavy and low. The baby kicked in response. "At least one of us is eager." Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother, Ethan. "Ethan, you home?" "Cassidy, yeah." "Nursery hell." "Ethan, good. I'm coming over." She frowned. He didn't usually drop by unannounced. Ethan arrived with takeout and a furrowed brow. Cassidy raised an eyebrow. "You're feeding me. That means you want something." "Just being a good brother." He handed her the bag and followed her into the kitchen. "Also, I might have had a conversation with Alex this morning." Cassidy froze mid-step. "What?" Ethan leaned against the counter. "He called me. Said he wanted to clear the air." She dropped the takeout on the counter. "Why didn't he tell me?" Ethan shrugged. "Maybe because he thought you'd be mad. Which, judging by your face, he was right about." "I'm not mad. She stopped. No, she was mad. Not because they talked, but because she hadn't been part of it. "Okay, maybe I'm a little mad." "Cass," Ethan said gently, he's trying. "I told him I still don't love the idea of you two, but I also told him I respect that he's staying. That he didn't run." She blinked at him. "You did." Ethan gave a sheepish smile. "Yeah. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation." She laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in days. "But seriously," he said, "you need to talk to him. Really talk. You two are building a whole life, but you keep protecting each other from the hard stuff. It won't work if you're only sharing the easy pieces." Cassidy leaned back against the counter, his words sinking in. He was right. Again. That night, Alex came home late, shoulders tense and eyes tired. Cassidy was waiting in the living room, a pile of nursery catalogs and unopened baby gear beside her. "Hey," he said. "Sorry, We need to talk." He stiffened. "Okay." She patted the couch beside her. "Sit." He obeyed. Cassidy didn't look at him right away. "Why didn't you tell me you talked to Ethan?" Alex hesitated. "I didn't want to worry you. You've been so focused on preparing for the baby, and I didn't want to drag you into more drama. But I am part of the drama. This is my life too, Alex. You don't get to shield me from it like I'm fragile." He sighed. "I wasn't trying to hide it. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I've made a lot of messes. With work. With people. With you. And I guess I thought if I could fix some of them behind the scenes, maybe I'd earn the right to be here. To be in this." Cassidy's heart cracked open a little. "You don't have to earn this," she said softly. "You're already in it. But if we're doing this together, I need you with me. Not 10 steps ahead, cleaning up before I get there." He finally looked at her, the weight of her words sinking deep. "I'm scared, Cass," he admitted. "Not just of being a dad, but of screwing this up. I've spent so long being the guy who fixes things. I don't know how to just be." She reached for his hand. "Then let's figure it out. Together." They sat there for a long time, fingers intertwined, not speaking. The silence was heavy, but not hollow. It was full of everything they couldn't say yet, but would. The next morning, Cassidy woke to the sound of drills. She padded to the nursery and found Alex, sleeves rolled up, bent over the crib, completely focused. "What are you doing?" she asked, amused. "Building a future," he said without looking up. "One screw at a time." She leaned against the doorframe, hand on her belly, and smiled. For the first time in days, she felt steady, not because the chaos had ended, but because they were facing it together. Facing it together. Facing it together. Facing it together. Cassidy sat at the small cafe table with a cappuccino growing cold in front of her. The city buzzed around her, clinking cups, distant sirens, chatter blending into a dull hum. But she barely registered any of it. Her mind was spinning, stuck in a memory she hadn't invited. Alex had gone to meet his mother, something about paperwork and family property. Cassidy didn't press. She could tell he was dreading it. It wasn't something he talked about often, his past, and when he did, it was laced with a bitterness he barely concealed. She picked up her phone and scrolled aimlessly until a name appeared at the top of her screen. "Unknown number. I heard about the baby. We should talk." Cassidy blinked, her breath catching. There was no name, but she knew exactly who it was. Vanessa, the ex, the one Alex never spoke about, the one who'd left him gutted and gun-shy when it came to relationships. She stared at the message for several long moments, heart hammering. When Alex returned home later that evening, he looked drained. He kissed her on the forehead and went straight to the kitchen to start chopping vegetables, his therapeutic ritual. "You okay?" she asked, watching him dice onions with mechanical precision. He nodded. "Fine. Just family stuff." Cassidy hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Vanessa texted me." The knife stopped mid-chop. Slowly, he looked up, the color draining slightly from his face. "What?" She said she heard about the baby. "Wants to talk." He put the knife down. "Did you respond?" "No. I wanted to talk to you first." He sank into a chair, scrubbing his hands over his face. "Cass, I never wanted her near you. She's manipulative, toxic, and she has this way of twisting things. Why do you think she reached out now?" "Because she always reaches out when I'm happy. It's like clockwork." Cassidy frowned. "Is there something I should know? Something unresolved?" He looked up at her, eyes pained. "No. I thought I loved her. I built a whole life around her. But when things got hard, she left. She couldn't handle failure, or compromise, or real love. What we had, it wasn't what I thought it was." Cassidy sat across from him. "So why does she still get to rattle you like this?" He leaned back, exhaling hard. "Because I let her. For a long time, I measured myself by her rejection. I let it define what I was worth. I buried myself in work to avoid ever getting that close to someone again. Until you." They sat in silence, the hum of the fridge filling the space between their words. Cassidy finally spoke. "I'm not her, and I'm not going anywhere. But if she's part of your story, I think we should face it head on. Together." Alex nodded slowly. "Okay, then let's meet her. Together." They met Vanessa at a sleek wine bar in Tribeca. Cassidy wore a simple black dress, her baby bump on full display. Alex stood tall beside her, hand resting gently on her back. Vanessa was exactly as Cassidy had pictured, elegant, poised and cold. Her smile was too sharp, her eyes too calculating. "Cassidy," she said, reaching out with a manicured hand. "So nice to finally meet you." "You too," Cassidy said, voice even. They sat. "I won't pretend this isn't awkward," Vanessa began. "But I heard about the baby and thought maybe some things needed closure." Alex crossed his arms. "Closure for who?" Vanessa's gaze flicked to him. "For all of us. I've been in therapy. I've learned a lot. I know I hurt you." Alex raised an eyebrow. "That's putting it mildly." Vanessa looked at Cassidy. "I didn't come here to ruin anything. Honestly, I wanted to see the kind of woman who could make him smile again." Cassidy stayed quiet, letting the silence press. Finally, Vanessa sighed. "He's better with you. I can see that. I hope you two are happy." Cassidy nodded slowly. "We are. And we will be." Vanessa stood. "Then I'll go. I just needed to say it." As she walked away, Alex let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for a decade. "Well," Cassidy said, "she was a lot." He turned to her, eyes warm. "And you're everything she's not." That night, lying in bed, Cassidy curled against Alex, her hand resting on her belly. "You okay?" he asked. "I am now. Thank you for facing her with me." She smiled. "We're a team, remember? Even when it's messy." Alex kissed her shoulder. "Especially then." As she drifted off to sleep, Cassidy felt the baby kick, sharp and certain. A reminder that life moved forward always, and that sometimes, to build something new, you had to confront what came before. Came before. Came before. Came before. The nursery was finally painted. Soft sage green walls, wooden crib with pale ivory bedding, bookshelves already half filled with classic children's stories, and a mobile of stars gently turning over the changing table. It smelled like cedar and lavender, like hope in something unfinished. Cassidy stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, chewing her lip as she looked over the room. "It's missing something," she murmured. Alex stood behind her. "What?" "I don't know. Something real. Something lived in." He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. "That'll come. When she's here. When we're up at 3 a.m., tripping over burp cloths and singing off-key lullabies." Cassidy leaned back into him. "Sounds magical. Sounds exhausting." They both laughed, but her smile faded quickly. "Alex." "I got a call from the publishing house." He stiffened slightly. "Yeah, they want to fast-track my book. It means traveling, signings, interviews, possibly a book tour." Alex was quiet. They offered a full-time publicist and PR team, a 6-month rollout calendar. "It's huge." He finally spoke. "And what do you want?" Cassidy hesitated. "I want both. To be a mother, to be a writer, to be with you. But I'm terrified I'm going to fail at all of it." He turned her around, searching her eyes. "Cass, if anyone can balance chaos and ambition and love, it's you. But you don't have to decide everything right now. We'll figure it out. Together." A tear slipped down her cheek. I've never had this before. A life is full, and the idea of losing any piece of it scares the hell out of me." He kissed her forehead. "Then we hold on to it, fiercely, and we forgive ourselves when it gets messy." The next morning, she woke up to find him in the kitchen, flipping pancakes one-handed, the other balancing his laptop against the coffee machine. "What are you doing?" she asked, bemused. "Learning how to cook everything on your pregnancy cravings list." "You're making lemon ricotta pancakes." He grinned. "Among other things." Cassidy leaned against the counter, watching him. He was different now. Softer, but not weaker. In fact, she realized, he'd never been stronger. He showed up every day, not just for her, but for the life they were building. It terrified her how much she loved him, and how fragile everything still felt. That night, her brother Ethan came by, boxes in hand. "Figured it was time I returned all your college crap," he said. Cassidy rolled her eyes. "I didn't ask you to keep any of this." He dropped the boxes with a dramatic huff. "Yeah, well, you've got the space now." Alex joined them with a beer in hand. "Want to stay for dinner?" "Sure," Ethan said. Then, lowering his voice, "Cass, can I talk to you? Alone." They stepped into the hallway. "You okay?" she asked. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, "about the baby, about you and Alex, about what it means to be part of this new thing you're building." Cassidy's heart kicked. "Ethan, I wasn't fair to you. Or him. I was pissed. Yeah, but mostly scared. I didn't want you to get hurt. I didn't want to lose my best friend or my sister." Her throat tightened. "But I see it now," he continued. "He's changed. And you're stronger than I've ever seen you. If this is what you want, I'm with you. Both of you. And her." Cassidy threw her arms around him, tearful. "Thank you." Later that night, Cassidy curled up in bed with Alex. "He came around," she said. "Ethan." Alex wrapped his arm around her. "Yeah, he gave us his blessing. For what it's worth." Alex kissed her shoulder. "It's worth a lot." She turned to face him. "Do you ever feel like we're standing on glass? Like it could all shatter at any second?" He nodded. "Every day. But I'd rather stand on glass with you than on concrete without you." She smiled through the lump in her throat. "You're getting really good at this feelings thing. Don't get used to it." They laughed softly, hearts full, even as the ground beneath them shifted like sand. Love, they were learning, wasn't about control. It was about choosing each other again and again, even when nothing felt certain. Especially then. Especially then. Especially then. Especially then. The baby shower was not Cassidy's idea. She wasn't the games and pastels type. She didn't want to play guess the baby food or pin diapers on cardboard cutouts. But Alex insisted. So did Ethan. So did literally every woman in her writing circle. So now she stood in the center of a sun-drenched garden in Fort Greene, under garlands of white roses and gold balloons, smiling as strangers rubbed her belly and handed her onesies the size of her palm. "I feel like a planet," Cassidy muttered to Alex as he handed her a mocktail. "You're a gorgeous planet," he teased. "The most radiant celestial body in the solar system." She gave him a sideways glare. "Stop trying to distract me with your ridiculous metaphors. They're working, aren't they?" Despite herself, she laughed. The event blurred by in a stream of gifts, cupcakes, and toasts. Cassidy's editor surprised her by showing up with a first-look draft of her book's cover. A rich, moody design with her name in bold serif letters. She felt a swell of pride and fear all at once. During a lull, she stepped away into the kitchen of the rented townhouse to breathe. That's when she heard it. Voices. Familiar ones. "I'm just saying, are you sure he's ready?" one woman said. "He gave up everything for her," another whispered. "But people like Alex don't just change overnight." Cassidy froze behind the wall. She's smart. But this, getting pregnant, falling in love with her brother's best friend, it's all very messy. "I give it a year," someone else said. Cassidy turned away, her throat tight. She didn't need their approval, but hearing their doubts felt like acid. Later that night, after everyone had gone, she sat on the edge of the bed, cradling a stuffed giraffe someone had gifted. "Do you think they're right?" she asked quietly. Alex looked up from folding baby clothes. "Who?" "The women at the party. They think you'll leave, that this won't last." He dropped the onesie and crossed the room in 3 long strides. "Cass, look at me." She met his eyes. "Do you think I'm going to leave?" "No," she said softly. "But I've been wrong before. About people. I won't be one of them. I want to believe that. I do. He knelt in front of her, hands on her knees. Then let me show you. Not with words. With time. With choices. Every single day. Cassidy's breath hitched. And if I mess up? If I get scared? If I pull away? Then I'll meet you where you are. Every time. Tears slid down her cheeks. This wasn't the plan. No, he said. It's better. A week later, the Braxton Hicks contractions started. False alarms, the doctor said. But they felt real enough to throw Cassidy into a spiral. She was pacing the living room when Alex came home early. Hey, what's going on? I can't do this, she gasped. I'm not ready. I don't know how to be someone's mother. What if I ruin her? What if I lose myself? Alex put down his bag and walked over slowly. You're scared. Of everything. He took her face in his hands. Cassidy Lane, you are the most capable, courageous, stubborn woman I have ever met. Do you really think motherhood is going to break you? She shook her head. I think it might unmake me. And I don't know who I'll be when I put myself back together. He kissed her, slow and certain. Whoever you become, I'll love her too. That night, she wrote for the first time in weeks. A raw, vulnerable chapter about fear and rebirth, about how sometimes falling apart is the first step to building something truer. She read it aloud to Alex the next morning. He didn't say a word when she finished, just kissed her hand and whispered, "That's the bravest thing I've ever heard." And just like that, the ground beneath them felt a little more solid, more solid, more solid, more solid. Cassidy had never been good at waiting. She thrived in momentum, in the click of keys and the thrill of ideas coming to life. But now, at 38 weeks pregnant, even walking up the stairs felt like a Herculean task. The brownstone seemed too quiet, too slow. And time had dragged. Alex had taken to working from home. His role at the company had shifted to advisory, something he negotiated after turning down the board's final offer to stay on as CEO. I didn't leave for a better job, he told them. I left for a better life. Cassidy had watched him grow into his new rhythm, less suit and strategy, more baby monitors and early morning coffee runs. And yet, the silence between them in those last days grew louder. Are you okay? He asked one night as they lay side by side in bed, the city humming beyond their windows. I should be, she said. I just feel like I'm standing on the edge of something huge. You are. She turned her head to look at him. Aren't you scared? He was quiet a beat. Then, terrified, but you don't show it. Doesn't mean I don't feel it. I've learned not to let fear decide what I do next. She reached for his hand under the covers. I think I'm afraid of not being enough, she whispered. You already are, he said. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Cassidy shuffled downstairs to find a surprise. A package with no sender. Inside was a notebook, leather-bound, worn at the edges. Familiar. Her old journal. She flipped through it, stunned. Notes from college, fragments of poetry, dreams she'd scribbled at 2 a.m. when the world was still wide open. And then, at the very back, in handwriting that wasn't hers, you were always brave, even when you thought you were breaking. Her throat clenched. She sank onto the steps, the journal pressed to her chest. He had kept it all this time. That afternoon, Cassidy wandered into the nursery. Everything was ready, diapers stocked, clothes folded, hospital bag by the door. Still, she felt an itch beneath her skin. Do you think she'll look like you? She asked Alex later. I hope she gets your fire. She'll probably cry like me. She'll laugh like you, too. Cassidy bit her lip. What if she hates us someday? Then we love her harder. What if we mess her up? Then we apologize and try again. She exhaled slowly. You make it sound easy. It's not, but it's real. The storm started the following evening. Thunder in the distance. A heat wave breaking apart. Cassidy stood on the balcony, wind catching her robe, watching lightning fork across the sky. Ethan called just after sunset. You ready for the big day? He asked. No idea, she said, but I'm starting to think nobody ever is. He laughed. That's parenthood, just a long series of educated guesses. Thanks for the pep talk. Hey, he said softer, you're going to be amazing. And I'm proud of you. Both of you. She felt tears sting her eyes. You're going to be an uncle, you know. I'm already practicing my bad jokes. That night, Cassidy couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls, wrote a few lines in her notebook, stared out at the storm. When she returned to bed, Alex stirred. You okay? I think it's happening soon, she whispered. He reached for her hand. Then let's meet it together. They lay in the dark, their fingers intertwined. Breath sinking, heartbeat steadying. No more running, no more plans. Just the quiet before everything changed. And somewhere in the night, with thunder still rumbling far away, Cassidy felt it, a shift inside her. A readiness, a courage she didn't know she had. She smiled to herself. The next chapter was coming. And she was ready. She was ready. She was ready. She was ready. The storm rolled in without warning. Rain lashed the brownstone windows, wind howling through the alleyways of Brooklyn Heights like a warning cry. Cassidy jolted awake, clutching her belly, heart hammering in her chest. Her nightgown was damp, but not from sweat, not from rain, from something else, something urgent. She swung her legs over the bed and winced. A cramp knife through her abdomen, white-hot and searing. She gasped, Alex! Within seconds, he was beside her, tousled and wide-eyed, adrenaline already surging. What is it? What's wrong? She looked up at him, fear and awe mingling in her gaze. My water broke. He blinked once, twice, then sprang into motion. The hospital was 30 minutes away in perfect weather. Tonight, in the chaos of a thunderstorm and traffic detours, it took nearly an hour. Cassidy clutched Alex's hand with bone-crushing force during every contraction. His knuckles turned white, but he never flinched. You're doing amazing, he kept saying. Liar, she gritted out. I want to murder you. He grinned despite himself. You can as soon as the baby's out. The delivery room was a blur of sterile light, beeping monitors, and a team of professionals moving with mechanical grace. Cassidy was strong, but the hours dragged like war. There was a moment, an awful, hollow moment, when the heart monitor slowed. A nurse shouted something. Cassidy's vision tunneled. I'm here. I'm right here, Alex whispered, forehead against hers, his voice trembling. You've got this. We've got this. She pushed, screamed, prayed. Then, the air cracked open with a wail that wasn't hers. The baby's cry was shrill, fierce, alive. It's a girl, the doctor announced, lifting the tiny bundle to her chest. Cassidy sobbed. Alex kissed her soaked temple, tears falling freely from his eyes. She's here, he whispered. She's perfect. They named her Alara, dark-haired, storm-eyed, and with a cry that already carried command. Cassidy held her daughter close, heart split wide with love and terror. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, Alex said, holding them both. But we'll learn together. That night, Ethan appeared in the hospital room, quiet and awkward, holding a balloon and a single sunflower. Thought she might be the type to stand out, he said, placing it by the bed. Cassidy smiled. She already does. Ethan leaned down. eyes softening as he looked at the baby. "Hey, Alara, you're lucky. You've got a mother who's fierce and brilliant, and a father who, well, he used to be a real asshole. But he's learning." Alex laughed through a lump in his throat. "Fair." In the weeks that followed, the world shrank and expanded all at once. Days were measured in feeding times and diaper changes, in sleepy kisses and whispered reassurances. Alex turned in his resignation. He didn't look back. He held Alara while Cassidy slept, recited poetry during colic, learned how to swaddle like a pro, and cried more than once in the middle of the night. And Cassidy, she rediscovered herself not in spite of motherhood, but through it, every moment raw and real, reshaping her into something stronger. 1 year later, the brownstone was filled with laughter and sunlight. Friends gathered for Alara's first birthday, balloons bouncing from the ceiling beams, and a cake half devoured by eager hands. Cassidy stood in the kitchen, wiping frosting from her daughter's cheek, when Alex appeared behind her, holding a small velvet box. "You said not yet," he murmured. She turned slowly, heart stammering. "Is it yet now?" Tears spilled over her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, simple and gleaming. And with their daughter giggling between them, their friends cheering around them, and a life they built from chaos and chance, Alex kissed his future wife. Not as a CEO, not as a man who had it all, but as the man who finally understood what mattered most. The end. The end. The end. The end.